Hello, good morning. Okay, I promised you to finish with lesson 4, and there we go. And we were dealing with the classification of cooperation agreements. First of all, I'm going to divide this third part of lesson 4 into many small videos in order not to have such a big one. Okay, so this first one is about the kinds, just the classification of cooperation agreements. Then we will get into the different kinds of. Well, whenever we classify something, we can use many different criteria. Well, the first criteria we can analyze depends on the number of participants. Cooperation agreements require at least two firms, but there can be more than two. So we can distinguish cooperation agreements between two firms and many firms. Between two firms, well, the example I can give you is the one I gave about Nestlé. Nestlé as a cooperation agreement, as a joint venture in this case, okay, between Nestlé and Coca-Cola. On the other hand, between many parts, between many partners, we can talk about the high velocity train of the Arab desert between Medina and La Mecca. Okay, so this train is being carried out by many parts. In fact, many Spanish firms are participating in this consortium. On the other hand, the kind of cooperation agreement can depend on the range of activities included in the cooperation. If the cooperation is focused on just one activity or not many activities, or if it's complex and it deals with many different activities, options, models, products, Okay, about a focused cooperation agreement, the example I give you, and it's not a perfect example, but okay, it can work. It's Android. Android is a cooperation agreement for the development of as an operating system for smartphones. Okay, many companies are participating in Android. On the other hand, we have got a complex cooperation agreement with many activities inside it, which is the alliance between Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishi, originally called Renault and Nissan. I am going to put this alliance as an example later, okay? But for what we want here, in fact, they cooperate in many different activities, which include the developments of many models or the development of many new engines, hybrid drives, Okay, so the range of activities included in this cooperation agreement is wide. We can also consider which is the goal of the cooperation agreement. If it's a competitive goal, if it's a corporate goal. By a competitive goal, we mean if the goal of the cooperation agreement is try to achieve or reinforce a competitive advantage for the firm. For instance, I don't know if you knew that Grupo Antolin is the main supplier of insides of cars in the world. And in fact, it's especially the main supplier of car roofs. On the other hand, you know Fiat Chrysler, okay, you know Fiat Chrysler, which is now in the process of integrating with PSA Group. Okay, Grupo Antolin is the main supplier of Fiat Chrysler for the insides of their cars. Which is the purpose of this cooperation for Fiat Chrysler? Well, in fact, they are working probably with the best supplier of roofs, of inside roofs, of the world. Do you know that one out of each 4 roofs of cars in the world are produced by Grupo Antolin? Funny, because the majority of people don't know Grupo Antolin. Okay, so the thing is that Fiat Chrysler is cooperating with one of the best suppliers possible. So in fact, this is reinforcing their competitive strategy. This is reinforcing the quality of the cars. On the other hand, a corporate goal would be expanding, would be growing. For instance, Telepizza. Telepizza created a franchise network. The majority of Telepizza restaurants you can go to, they are franchises. They belong to franchisees. So in fact, the goal of these restaurants is expanding Telepizza. Then, the relationship between the partners. The relationship can be vertical, I mean, a cooperation agreement between a supplier and a customer, such as the one I told you between Grupo Antolin and Fiat Chrysler. Can be horizontal, non-competitive, I mean, can be horizontal between two firms which are at the same level but they are not competing. for instance, let us say between a greengrocer and a fishmonger, or can be horizontal but competitive amongst firms which are in fact competitors. This is typical, both in fact, horizontal, competitive and non-competitive is typical of a mall. In a mall, you can have firms which are competing and firms which are not competing, but they are at the same level. They are not suppliers or customers of each other. Finally, and this is the classification we are going to develop in depth, okay? We can distinguish between, depending on the nature of the agreement, we can distinguish between contractual agreements. Contractual agreements are those which are based on a contract, different kinds of contracts, but based on a contract. We have long-run contracts, outsourcing, franchises, licenses, This is something we are going to develop, okay? Also, we have got capital agreements. Capital agreements are based in exchanges of capital, are based on shareholding. So we are going to distinguish two kinds, which are a participation exchange and the joint venture. Finally, interorganizational networks. Interorganizational networks provide with a framework within which it's easy to cooperate. And well, these three kinds, we are going to develop them deeply.